Good morning, CNN. The military is not just trying to get out of Afghanistan. These countries have been in collusion here and there against our own, with our own fake sides, experts, fake experts, simultaneously. The only ones that know about these groups and things like that, and you guys talking to Americans don't listen to that, because what do we know about groups? Well, we know locations, areas, and states are criminally foreign influence here and there, and it's in collusion. You guys use my name and involved with the other countries involved with uses of corners on schools, inside, outside. This is a vertical and horizontal database, private too. Intercampuses of each age and nature, even simultaneously. People on and off body dumping spots. Different cases and depositions already being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence since founding, pounding drums. See Chief. See, locations, areas, and the states are going to keep. Chief says victims forced to entertain short words and long words, criminally foreign influence, delusions wrought, and hiding it by being rules, crimes, predators. By exploiting how the men and women associated with the military police, families from Wethersfield, with their campuses, all exception nature, tied to the three branches of government. There are only three. They are recorded how used remotely as victim, but as victim predators, and that will sustain. So it is recorded how they are victim. Even things that appear like only to be wrongdoing and or naturally, they even need to lie about their emotions and their passions as actually recorded. So increasingly they need to offensively, they are shown needs to put this method on the child campuses too, intercampuses of each age and nature connected. So there's a Justin Klavinskis who sought me out to make exceptions where they could pretend to know me. All exceptions in exception nature and demonstration of it. For example, where I went to work at Cross Automotive, it was right after they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated and confirmed that people involved with Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, and New Britain Superior Court. And I found out about how all on and off the state judicial branch offices, all along Route 3, all along all the way the roads and routes, all along from Church Street in Old Wethersfield, corners, houses, and the corner of Church Street and Main Street, all the way from Wethersfield to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, and with Trinity College, and with UConn, involved with predicate acts with agencies, and with courts, judges, and family members, and with other countries, and with military, with identity thefts and frauds instances completely made up and mixed with a whole bunch of people that make exceptions that they can't be honest about. And those are the people that are being and having been used remotely leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. Interstates, first having been intercities, criminally foreign influenced, and hyper-criminally foreign influenced, as we'll discern needs to even define that in relationship to, in other words. It's way worse than prejudice. That was a breaching method against every single person, crazy laws. Therefore, it was what people could say. It was what they had to say. It was treatments of positive and negative in collusion that were both criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatment. Things can work or not in relationship to what is actually simultaneously true always. As exceptions in exception nature, demonstration of the same thing. So, in other words, they're using the identity of the military since before the World Trade Center attack every year for longer than 20 years, no. I've been asking to, and since I was a kid, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, I asked to report, and I responded to, see, there are investigators, individually grouped and together as the three branches of government, that they were used to hide their own individual, finite, active, progressive lies, illusions, roles, sequence shifts roles, identity theft / fraud roles, where they are opinion nature / conviction nature, where and how we are quality as fact treatment nature. Now, this is relevant, for example, per the uses of criminal insidiousness nature. Natures like criminals, like wrongdoers. See, wrongdoers were sustained roles with predicate acts that were forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, off the records, to all locations in every modern country and in America before our founding parents were even born. And it was already having been affected and maintained through others, through other motivations, natures, needs, and interests, on and off records, in collusion, all counters to all the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, such identities of value progression, individually grouped and together. Nature demonstrates negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. That they knew they employed the human value nature system, blaming other things, blaming others, and or blaming selves for what it was causing. The breaching method, the predicate acts delivery system method, if you will, the human fact treatment nature slavery method. That which we know, not one legal identity, has found themselves means to defend themselves, as they were only capable of being revealed, and of us at the same time. I just remind, lawyers were also involved self-valuing roles for nature's needs, interests, other than the breaching methods, also screening it and pretending to be patriotism natures anyway since founding, exploiting the overt / insidious theft of James Madison's identity, of America's identity. For example, uses of it. I've been asking, and this is also before school, so they want to start school with this game still going. There's an officer, Jerry Miller, who's one of the officers on Facebook. Facebook page stewards of these campuses are also involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family members, also as the ones involved with these military police intercities, and with Wethersfield Police intercities personally, formally, involved with relevant predicate acts and wrongdoing and sequence shifts in natures of identity thefts and frauds instances with others, uses of others. Then everyone's attached to fake natures of relationships to themselves and others. They already invested themselves, painted into corners per how they have foreign military also, Kuwait, and their roles with the deans, where and how they have been exploiting how they have hundreds of different nations like Korea, Italy, Afghanistan, involved with this, and you know what they do too. You know how, like, if a girl says, "Oh, I don't want to be involved with you," and and the guy doesn't get the idea. They're in the background pretending that about me and about guys on a large scale, and exploiting exceptions sometimes too, because, like on Facebook, where a girl unfriended me. I find that anyway, but these are people involved with the interbranch, family members, with the overt criminal enterprises, not just legitimately undercover or whatever. These are people involved with predicate acts with them, with identity thefts and frauds instances relevant to and as predicate acts roles, on and off cases, on and off depositions, on and off uses of that, and there were uses of that recorded. It's not complicated, it's just extensive. That's why you don't, for example, The View, please, there's a man on there who said that he likes to be in other people's business. See, they need people to pretend things, passions and emotions, where CBS is supposed to follow mandated law. They're playing wire crime acts and methods. They're using examples like when they do have audio and video that they show you of people with behavior that, or in other words, getting angry at people for the response. In other words, WFSB attached me to fake words with the agencies and with military families retired and standing and reportedly dishonorably discharged from the military. They're also involved with the 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike with identity thefts and frauds instances. And I don't know the Fred Grisey. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that there were men and women involved with abuses of children. These are also people I found out and abuses of elderly, involved with all kinds of juxtaposed natures of organized crime with people associated with Harvard Hospital, like a Leahy family, that is also involved with retired and standing detective police forms of all natures, intercities, with the Wethersfield Police, and with the same House/S involved with evidence perception racketeering, and with identity perception racketeering, and with sequence shifts. Many ways most important, because this is also how this is first uses of all identity ground locations. And then it was further. It's 10 ways, but it was further without anyone realizing how it was using all formal, each age of fact cheap nature, down to all locations, down to instances. It was using how that is self-valued. That's why it's also, because it's exploiting how we are identity of value/value progression actually as a species. See, the sciences offensively have physical delusions. I am not a doctor, I'm not a police form, not a criminal. I could show you how we could delineate the delusions from the criminally foreign influence premises treatments of those involved with psychiatry, also with Pakistan and with Afghanistan and with Korea, and with a whole bunch of Wethersfield police retired and standing, involved with predicate acts of juxtaposed natures through time, attaching me and my family to fake words with themselves, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves, also recorded because of their needs to hide roles with vertical and horizontal predicate acts, where foreign and domestic were attaching kids and are attaching kids and their family members to fake words with themselves and with others. These are not just stupid people pretending that they're starting fights with parents from backgrounds, and overtly they don't realize the depths of the involvement of the 3 branches of government personally with psychiatry and psychiatrists, and with database locations, including their own. How they are seeding illusions in that are in the furtherance of predicate acts against each person, even against themselves, originally and still. This is where and how. So we have to discern hypercorrelation with the correlative conjunction and the coordinating conjunction as a sentence. We have to discern hypercommunications, because there are verbal communications, nonverbal communication, and there are hyper communications where people are lying non-verbally and verbally. There are also, this is getting simultaneously harder but also easier for them to do. So they increasingly self-value what is actually simultaneously recorded being gotten over on, haven't been gotten over on. There are even, so they have the counters of each of types of crimes for example, in collusion with that which is predicate acts over the youngest ages of campuses, private and public connected. How they have them divided, exploited, how they have them united, exploited. Everyone used remotely kept needing to hide live progressions, kept needing to pretend to have integrity, to answer questions. See, keep increasingly uses of the knowledge of the law, to play chick punk games. In other words, let's let the police, let's let the courts decide this. See, individually grouped and together, there are many ways for people to say that criminally, foreign influenced. And there are many ways for that to be be used remotely. And so the roles with that, the styles of logic, they're going to increasingly value that having been. And that was having been because it was forced entrenched. There was slavery in the North and in the South. That is hyper positive, where you don't make positive out of negative. You show where and how to make positive everywhere at once. You show how that shows the predicate act, the method, what it was, sickly, non-distinctly. The only reason that hasn't been addressed because everyone was blaming other things, others, and ourselves, playing these little identities. That is not how we are individually grouped and together bound, all gathered round. You are not just trying to get out of Afghanistan. You are hiding people. You are hiding the roles with the MPs, with the investigators of the World Trade Center attack, and with the allies and enemies, all in collusion through because all locations are used remotely. You have the campuses with little representatives from each one used remotely. It's all right if people want to pretend. In other words, if you're on TV and you're part of a network, which is all the networks, nothing personal against the network. They are people that are backed in the corners since they were kids, with other people lying to them. Misinformation, where they have the right to lie, the agencies in the branches of government being and having been employed to get over on everyone and to pretend other, screening it through other motivations, nature, needs, interests. So, in other words, these are 6 sides of the political parties. There are still locations, areas, and states that are criminally foreign influence, pretending others since founding, forcing the presidents to pretend other with them. Only capable of it. So, in other words, they're not trying to make peace over there, the news media. They're trying to shut people up over here. In other words, they're trying to end over there. And they're trying to pretend others, so they're fake sides. It's good cop, bad cop, in collusion, wherever that phrase came from. I heard it many times on television before. All these networks. In other words, they want to debate things out of sequence. They're forging and switching names interbranch, and they won't put that onto paper. I caught them with this. And how they non-verbally they have verbal confessions out of nowhere from people, and then they have the non-verbal confirmation, like with the Dillon family, as one of the military police and the judges' family members involved with predicate acts on and off Two-Route Highway, where it runs into Hangdog Lane. And their roles with some Confederate flag-themed, black-themed military police with identity thefts and frauds instances, predicate acts roles, and with medical racketeering, and with the military and their investigations of the World Trade Center and the locations used for it, like Cuba and like Hartford Hospital and the locations next to it. They've had roles with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, child abuses, officers that abused girls and with their family members, and with former director, people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, John LeConte, Donna Calabrata, and Thaddeus Grabowski on off the Fox Connecticut News location right outside of it, with others from Wethersfield police involved with identity thefts and frauds, where they tried to make instances to pretend to know me, and they also don't know the extent of it themselves. So they make fights between people and or friendships that are not legitimately for the ways they do it as police trained to. These are people involved with physical delusions and with drugs and medicines crimes with kids, a domain family, and with my town's police chief from 1 years ago involved with predicate acts with an O'Brien family, and people that work with the prisons involved with drugs and medicines crimes with the gangs and with the doctors of those prisons and with the courts. And their family members kept needing to hide the same sequences, find act of progressive life, uses of identity ground locations, and others having used it with fact treatment nature reception, where they are victim predators. Uses of, so this is here and there. Then they want to compare. The only reason America is better than other nations, where other nations have things that are better too. But in other words, that's what I love. And when they want to make you say, I love America. And they want to make you have a debate about that, leaving out how their roles, preventing people from making, countering offensive identity thefts and frauds on and off these campuses connected. And how they do it through other motivations, natures, needs, and uses of instances. So a whole bunch of countries are involved with demoralized families, and with the name Collusion and people associated with them at CCSU and at Trinity College, who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed them involved with drugs and medicines crimes, also with police forms with badges who are doctors of that. Also, per their uses of identity ground locations, sequence, natures of identity thefts and frauds are one of the things commonly shared by the people I don't know at all tied to these names. And the uses of them. So in other words, they don't even know. The Wethersfield police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed from Wethersfield town offices. And the Wethersfield Police Department, they have more people over the last months. Like 6 months ago, called and confessed, recorded. They have more officers forging and switching names. They also brought in the name Sullivan, and a guy who was using her name. And they said that the only officer they have that is a Sullivan is a female. Now there are also people with the name Sullivan on Park Street who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with the child abuses on the principal child abusers campus. Before that was caught, during the time, and since, because they were involved also as interbranch families involved with that, as teachers as intelligence community associated with teaching at the schools intercities and natures of campuses, including campuses of the fire departments having been used remotely. So I also found out about how other agencies, not just the FBI, are criminally foreign influenced and have been attaching me and others to fake words also with the news media, intercities, since before the World Trade Center attack, because of what I had caught the courts and the police forms and like a former Mayor Gold, other mayors doing intercities and with locations like in West Hartford, and their roles with all these natures of crime criminally. Not legitimately, but to all locations, so they could stay up where and how all these countries are shared also illegitimately. So they stay close to it that way, apparently. Or whatever their logic is. They're hiding behind it. So it's not that. Then, in other words, they're demonstrating that's what's involved with them, preventing me from getting a response. They tell people to pretend they don't understand people. WFSB attached me to fake words, fake writing of emails, fake writing, and they switched that to pretend it was a conversation over email. And they looks like they retyped something from Facebook and pretended that was the substance of the email with NBC Connecticut News and with other Connecticut news. And they also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that there are identity thefts and frauds instances where people spoke fake things so others could record fake things with courts and police forms that are involved with other, as the cliques also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones in a whole bunch of other countries on off Millwoods Park. You know, so they have, I don't know what it is with Millwoods Park, and there's and the locations next to and on off the Wethersfield Community Center. All sides of it are involved, people involved with identity theft, frauds instances, also with connections to the Dillon family, and with confessions connected to the corner of and to the location, the buildings around Fox Connecticut News and the state capitol. And as people involved with federal criminals before they got caught, that had their themselves and their kids involved with and as kids in my schools, who also timed confessions and sequence shifts and identity thefts and frauds instances, good and bad, that were in collusion through time too, so no one's going to be able to counter it. In other words, and where and how the Afghanistan is just a country. In other words, when they speak in the news, they're not speaking honestly. They're about their motivations, because they've been lying about the motivations of others. They're criminally foreign influenced people who answer the phones for them roles. And they're pretending to just, oh, that's a title. I lie. I don't think. I just read the news. If you go on their Facebook page, in other words, they don't follow mandated law. That's why they have the overt criminal enterprises, plural, and the private ones involved with these wire crime acts and methods, and identity thefts and frauds acts and methods, intercities connected since before the World Trade Center attack. All these countries, you guys brought this in with the former director of the FBI, with the people involved with the depositions of him and his co-defendants, their family members involved with the military police. You guys know I caught you guys. What you guys were actually doing. Offensive evidence reception racketeering, identity thefts and frauds instances, uses of the deans from various colleges and universities, even ones I didn't even go to, involved with the West Hartford predicate acts, which were also roles with the names that were Intercities Hartford and Wethersfield campuses, involved with that location through time, but the confessions that bring up locations all along that route from Wethersfield along Wells Road all the way to Central Connecticut State University, right through there, are relative instances of identity thefts and frauds. People setting up exception nature to criminally foreign influenced. Also, as part of which shows how they don't even know the extent of it. And in other words, you guys brought themselves up. You guys making people use others' names. The Cololo family and the Wethersfield police brought up with their falsified police reports, forging, switching names. Before the pandemic, there's an officer, Jerry Miller, who's also one of the ones recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Mendez police and some other, and this Domain family with police forms on all Fox Connecticut News, involved with predicate acts on all sides of my house, and that are fact treatment nature oriented, and per which shows them with child abuses of the little boys and girls through time, specifically so they could keep them needing to hide libel aggressions, but needing to pretend they could speak for positive anyway, integrity or identity anyway, honestly. So if you care about other people's business, fix the fake roles, because these are people that pretend they care about other people's business because they're needed to pretend passions and emotions also through time. In other words, there are courts needing to lie about why and how black people are mad at them, for example. And or at schools. Fools that never taught anyone, that never spoke for why they should be upset still. Not because of racism. That's a trap, putting our arm around them and stabbing them. This is how we're going to make you frame your legal argument. That's since founding. It's an identity theft / fraud. It's also criminally foreign influenced premises, treatments, and delusions. But they get away with it per rules crimes, racketeering being and having been used remotely. So they're going to lie about the substance of someone and get away with it. And the reason they're getting away with it is because of how they have all these countries, Russians too here and there, involved with the Weathersfield. All these countries are involved with the instances with the names brought up in the wire crimes of the Weathersfield police. And these are ones intercities on off other campuses, stacking fake, me next to fake. They have the campuses that are recorded 24/7. So they use that to pretend people to fake natures of relationship, to fake relationship to themselves. So they can pretend passions, emotions from the 3 branches of government and or at the locations they're involved with. But also that's how they're involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Little cowards with them, so they have to pretend they have courage. So they time illusions. They make confessions. Oh, I lied to my girl. So I don't know. Eric Burgess has a girlfriend that is involved with a judge at Hartford. A judge is plural with Hartford courts and with military police that have roles switching and forging names, and they have roles on and off campuses and on and off locations next to campuses. Like there's a bar on Park Street, right around the corner from one of the campuses, that a Sullivan family is and has been involved with intercities, also with a school in my town, the schools in my town, and when I was in 6th grade at Highcrest School, and these are the ones also involved with the Russians and with people from Puerto Rico. Involved with predicate acts, with also the families that run the prisons, on off the state prison offices, involved with identity thefts and frauds instances, uses of confessions tied to that, through people that aren't going to let you counter how, in other words, they'll tell you that they know the person's involved with the identity thefts and frauds against you. Like with Hartford gym, boxing gyms, Johnny Duke's gym. Johnny Duke was like a national big boxing trainer. See, my father had a hobby of boxing. He didn't want me to get in. I got in too late. I mean, I would have gotten in perfect since before the World Trade Center attacked. That's one of the ways I've been extorted. Worse than extorted. And they're preventing me from teaching. Because when I was in high school and middle school, they had to hide life progressions distinctly. So when I was in middle school, there were kids that and their brothers and their family members. I never spoke with the family members. I mean, with the parents of the Joe DeMora from Weathersfield. His cousin Joe DeMora from Rocky Hill too. I was in his presence, I heard him speak, but I never had a conversation with him. They were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with an O'Brien family and with a former Mayor Gold with predicate acts, with the databases, with identity thefts and frauds against me. Specifically, for example, and against everyone. Specifically to make people not be able to speak about what is positive, honestly, about other people and about themselves. They want us to hate themselves so we can't speak about what is positive, which is individual grouped together. See, but they're not letting that have voice. They're employing and having employed all differences and all polarities being and having been employed. For example, what they have with the buildings next to the state capitol, next to at the locations next to news media. They have roles with offensive evidence reception and identity reception racketeering and sequence shifts. Everyone, the only way we can counter how everyone has it commonly as victim predators, we have to counter the sequence shifts and the uses of little subtle things at the youngest ages, and how simultaneously that is on off elderly homes, and how especially probate courts are, and the other and superior courts, for example, are sickly, distinctly criminally foreign influenced and involved with sequence shifts and with the other courts. And no one's going to address this, even though there's so many means to address this as founding, unless we do it together. In other words, they don't even have the right to assemble. That's measured and maintained by the breaching method distinctly from our own measured and maintained fake. Otherwise, we would be able to say this is not, in other words, this is a tactically denatured identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself. Walk down from the 30th story of a building in New York City. The way they built things up. Not alone. As made only capable of debating in the furtherance of defenses of themselves, in the furtherance of as screens to what maintain that used remotely, like little particles of, like how I don't know how an Etch-a-Sketch works because it holds it up. But I mean, if you put a magnet over, just like if you put a magnet over shavings of metal, iron or something, and you have a sheet of plastic above it, you'll see it'll pull it up and it'll follow along with the plastic between it and the magnet. Just like that, the breaching method built countries A1 through Z, however many countries there are, little shavings, until they were defenses of, and I sustain that. They sustain them as victims, needing to react as fact-sheeping nature, as identity nature. Because the ground and us, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, are the same thing. And by what is even further, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, what we are being, when we are being that, the same thing. Because it was more finite as one identity of volume, where value equals nature, / nature equals value. But it was one identity of volume distinctly from before the smallest finite was generated. And then while it was the order of the finite, distinctly, it was also non-distinctly still that original value / value progressions, identity of relationship to itself as volume, and the value of that increasing. And where that, and how that increases from inside itself. See, computers have to mimic this. And everything has to mimic this. Computers have to mimic what English is trying to teach, what English was revealed to teach, no with the other languages. Because real difference, real exception nature, real exceptions and real exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing, especially where and how there are exceptions that appear to be in demonstration, but they're really only in demonstration of the same thing. One identity of answer/S is increasingly relevant to all of our questions, individually grouped and together. And it is native pure. So increasingly it is self-value, having been forsaken relevance. For example, that one aspect of the fact-keeping nature, slavery of American humanity as an individual, of countries grouped, and of countries, a species. Now this method knew that they would defend identities individually grouped and together tactical ulterior from how we are individuals as volume, grouped as volume, as locations, distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously again. And as the species, science, identity of volume/S, this is in demonstration of where and how we are value/nature. Values, we are value, nature, value as nature, / nature as value. Those are three distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous natures, including the / solely this. And it has other names. I don't know how many other names it has. It might have 5. But that is an identity of volume, where value equals nature / nature equals value. That's not the same thing, because those are two different sequence natures. We are value as nature, distinctly from how we are nature as value. And this is where value /S and where and how we are a value / value progression. This is where and how we are a quality of diffusion, increasingly ulterior from that one system that is native pure, that discerns not only what's positive or negative that's going to work, cause positive value nature progressions even, but it's further positive or negative, because simultaneously only one identity only of system, only one identity of simultaneous nature, of hyper-simultaneous nature, is what can be used to discern not only what's going to make something work, positive or negative, or evaluation of that, but it is further, in other words, criminal insidiousness, a criminal insidiousness nature, like a wrongdoer, is going to, or someone who commits a predicate act, is going to make positive treatments as a quality of fact-keeping nature that can't afford a quality of fact-keeping nature necessary and capable of being taught at this simplest level /S. So we have what is simple and we have what is complex, increasingly valued, having been criminally foreign influence, delusions wrought, having been with means to get away with it by blaming the real cause of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures on other things and or on others and or on selves. Exactly the way the breaching method wanted, needs, and maintained. The Native Americans made America great. With the fact of how our founders' parents made themselves a counter-criminal insidiousness nature and a counter-criminal enterprise. Because they didn't have the means. They didn't have the free speech. They had speech forced. They had to hide their roles. Actually, with what wrought the integrity of the Constitution claimed unabridged. So that went searching for who was going to claim the Constitution unabridged. Because that's what the system is about. That's where all those breaching methods, everyone was sickly, distinctly a victim to keep the nature, everyone, and what everyone could say, used remotely. As sense and sensibilities, they're going to start fighting with each other. Or they're going to have a unity to counter the breaching method that's going to show itself because it's going to be blaming other things and or others and or selves the way it needed to when they're trying to counter that. Halfway while still in collusion, completely, increasingly. So they make us compare to measure and maintain. And it works. Because then our own measure and maintain each other. Like Democrat, I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to measure and maintain exploit the Republicans doing this, and the Republicans same thing against the Democrats. They measure and maintain, blamed on other things, others themselves, and screened what really causes negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. What really is the quality of fact, keeping nature, the quality of integrity, which is none at all locations. How they got away with pretending other. So, there's a domain family that is one of the ones that people demonstrated, confessed, recorded, and confirmed is involved with one of the military police families involved with the identity thefts and frauds and forging and switching names roles, extortion, identity thefts and frauds, and also because this is exactly what it is sickly distinctly to the north end of Hartford locations and to the West Hartford locations and the New Britain locations and the south end of Hartford locations, even and those locations next to the hospitals, like next to Hartford Hospital, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Other people involved on off 2-route highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane. And that runs perpendicular with the Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. And people involved with that, with predicate acts roles, identity thefts and frauds instances roles, wrongdoing roles on and off the 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. And that also runs into Maple Street, which Route 3, which runs from Glastonbury over a bridge. Then our first house there, the Oliveri house, is one of the ones also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with identity thefts and frauds instances, with the names with the Wethersfield Police, wire crimes, on off Trinity College, intercities being and having been timed, as ones who have been coordinating different instances and pretended means to confrontation, so they could hide what they've been doing in the background. These are also people with Facebook, with the courts, with the ILO family involved with the courts with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College before the World Trade Center attack, in the context of the World Trade Center attack, and since. They've been using locations next to it. And the family members. There's Delafair family. There's like a whole bunch of brothers. I never had classes with any of them. And they're one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated with a probate judge, and with other probate judges, confirmed, recorded, demonstrated. They didn't use their name. They used other people's names tied to them too. But that's what they do. They have people make confessions about other people's statements. And as people that are involved with forging names, switching names roles, and uses of all exceptions, and creating exceptions criminally in the furtherance of it. So we have nothing that has not been criminally formed. They even have the relationship of the campuses to people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with Native American intelligence, also involved state police families, interstates, involved with this Joshua Stryker and other people on off Trinity College, on off CCSU that went to my schools, who had roles where they were painting people to fake locations, fake words, fake natures of relationship to themselves and to others. And they do it with goofy people too. So if you make fun of them, they pretend you're prejudiced or something like that. They have different people with the same names too. Like there are Mark and Kevin Carone. I don't know if they're related to a James Carone. But a James Carone is one of the ones involved with the police forms intercities. And I don't know if Central Connecticut State University. There were also proofs that they have, they have not their legitimate, whatever they're trying to keep secrets or something like that. They have an immature person or someone pretending to be him. Wethersfield Police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They attach me. They attach my neighbor to roles with their wire crimes, switching and forging names through time. Other falsified police reports roles. There's a Chris Walters who gave me an affidavit that he was also one of the ones I met through my neighbor who was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts with databases and with police forms and with doctors, involved with child abuses of him and others, and people that, in other words, and we're involved with identity thefts and frauds as people that make exceptions with others that we don't know at all that pretend other. And like with a Charlie Bowes and a woman who says that she's his sister is also one of the ones recorded, confessed, and demonstrated and involved on Trinity College, attaching me to fake words, fake natures of relationships to themselves and others through time, as people involved with various natures of federal crimes before the federal criminals got caught. And they get away with such because they're tied to the former director of the FBI's co-defendants and their family members, and with the uses of the corners, where there's a time where you're coming to lie about what came before that. And then they lock people in those contexts of each age. You need to hide that, exploited through time. And so these are the people forging names and switching names into branch. On, off, Paul Manafort Drive and CCSU are also sources of CCSU, of CNN, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the other countries criminally, the ones they've been doing reporting, and with these agencies criminally, and as their roles with child abuses, elderly abuses, medical racketeering, physical delusions, rules, reception racketeering, preventing police reports, obstructing justice, pretending other people are obstructing justice. You'll see how sick. So if the person on the View, for example, separate me from the fake words and get me one of the names from any one of the branches regarding their confessions interbranch, switching names and forging names, falsifying police reports, hiding what I caught them doing on the principal child abuser's campus when they were forcing it, with more then and now involved. And since that name was brought up, I don't know if it was a coincidence, by people involved with the corner of Knott Street and Walcott Hill, recorded, also confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with houses off 2 Route Highway, with identity thefts and frauds against me, where they tried to set up instances so they could pretend they know me. If I say that's not true, they try to pretend that's an instance I know. I don't know that person. I don't know the people that live there tied to the Spada family. The Spada family is one of the ones that some probate court judges and some prosecutors and New Britain Superior Court has a whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded their little girls as kids with their other boyfriends too, like a Rob Rodriguez and his sister and her father involved with Valley Crest, and I believe his name is street, and Joe DeMoro and another neighbor of his with a Finelli family. A Finelli family is involved with identity thefts and frauds instances, and with people that would try to make business transactions with me. Since I was a kid, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. That was through criminal foreign influences for uses of it relevant to as identity thefts and frauds instances, and people using other people's names and hearing them. So there are Wethersfield police who confirmed, confessed, demonstrated, recorded. There are houses on Bolter that they involved with the abuses of children and with identity thefts and frauds against me, and with people with the name Kerr, which is also Officer Jerry Miller, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that Jerry Kerr is one of the ones involved with them, which 2 Mendez police were when they were kids. I also didn't have a class with Mendez police. They were involved also with these Joe DeMoros and people that made confessions when I was in middle school about their roles with people. When I was in grammar school, people from the other grammar school classes with the mayor's daughter, they pretended passions and emotions. And with kids of medical families that were spreading lies through their own kids and other kids behind people's backs so they can't respond to it, and to the teachers. See, when you have people involved with FBI and CIA corruption, and they are caught lying about people, and pretending integrity, they make confessions. They use the sense and sensibility of people in the background. They're the people who answer the people who report the news do not care. If the people that answer the phones for them are criminally foreign influenced, are sick, and they'll pretend they don't realize. They know that none of these nations have the right to use the name of our countries. They want us to fight about that, leaving out what's actually recorded. I've been asking you since from before the World Trade Center attack for a response. They attach you. You can't go to the place. They'll pretend you went there. You didn't even go there. Like with these Mendez police brothers, with the Wethersfield Police Department and on off Fox Connecticut News. These are people involved with police forms, other, and former director of the FBI, and federal criminals before they got caught. Now this is also for how everyone speaks through other people. Sick punks with guns. Get them on paper. Because there's also a Bob Chase who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed a Phil Cololo. A Phil Cololo is one of the ones involved with this officer who only brought up the name Cololo. He didn't say Phil Cololo or which Cololo. But that's part of the role. That's part of the way they brought up the Cololo on my street before they moved in. O'Brien family and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed them roles with the stacking database solutions lies about other people and with overt criminal enterprises before they are caught in sins. These are also people with recorded forensics locations ties with the same houses involved with predicate acts with them. And those forensics locations are also fact-cheating nature